Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tanner Watt. I'm a municipal program specialist with Local Authority Services. We're going to be hearing today from Jonathan Burby, Director of Business Development in Canada for Gordian. He'll be presenting on some new techniques to help municipalities efficiently and effectively deliver on their construction projects. Gordian services are available through the Canoe Procurement Group, which helps to lower costs and simplify procurement for municipalities. We have several other webinars planned for the fall, including fuel management, drone technology, and electrification of fleets and equipment. You can visit the LAS events page to check that out, or I will post a link in the chat box in a little bit. A couple of housekeeping notes. We are recording the webinar. We'll be sending out a link in a follow-up email along with contact information for both of us, either this afternoon or tomorrow. We're going to, after Jonathan's presentation, we'll have a Q&A period. We're going to use the question and answer feature built into Zoom. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little box that says Q&A on it. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, just type them in there. And at the end, we'll go through and answer all of those for you. In the email that you'll be getting this afternoon or tomorrow, there will be a link to a survey. If you can take the time to please fill that out, we'd appreciate it. It helps us make sure that these webinars are meeting your needs. So with that, I will hand it off to Jonathan.
Thanks very much, Tanner. We're very excited to join the community with LAS and Canoe and to share a little bit about Gordian and job order contracting. As you may have noticed in my bio and in my introduction, I spent over 30 years in the public sector, mostly in infrastructure. And one of the more challenging parts about my work was just delivering on the annual renewal capital and long-term maintenance spend on my budgets. So what attracted me to Gordian was really that job order contracting affords organizations the opportunity to use a compliant method to expand the capacity to complete the repair, maintenance, and straightforward construction projects. So at the end of today's session, I just want to leave you with a couple of tools, additional tools to help you deliver your construction program. And we want to keep this very informative, but it is very transformational, and it's very different from traditional contracting methods. So as Tanner mentioned, we'll make sure there's lots of time left at the end for questions. So who's Gordian? We're the building knowledge company. We empower teams to effectively manage the entire building lifecycle. So you can think of, often people know us as a software as a service company, but we're very much a service company. So our building intelligence solutions are fueled by accurate insights, robust technology, and comprehensive expertise. So we have a number of consultants and people with building science background in the company. We also have really strong tech platforms, and then just the data science and cost and all the things that allow you to manage your building lifecycle better are all inherent in the company. So the way we work with customers is primarily with our assessments, our strategic capital planning, estimating, and procurement. And procurement's the area we're going to focus on today with job order contracting. We also talk about our vision of how we work very much in the public sector. So we're very serious about our commitment to deliver on the promise of better communities. We have a long track record of working in the public sector, and I know we're speaking with primarily local government representatives today, but we've worked with all 4 levels of government, K-12, post-secondary education, health care in the hospitals and clinical settings, and we do have some private sector customers as well. 2 of the customers you see up there, partners we work with include Mississauga and City of Richmond. And we've worked with them with job order contracting since 2017 and 2009, respectively. So we understand what it's like working in the public sector, needing to work transparently, needing to get the best value, needing to be compliant with trade agreements, and we're very comfortable in that space. We spend a considerable amount of time talking to customers we know or with industry to really understand those common challenges. One of the big ones, particularly since the pandemic, is those big gaps in capacity, whether it's vacancies or just new people entering the market, entering the workforce, following all those retirements. It is tricky to know about procurement. It's tricky to know about construction. And then how about that intersection between procurement and construction? So we're seeing a number of organizations that are really stretched thinly to respond to their needs. Cost control, looking at change orders, especially in an inflationary environment, it's a great degree of sensitivity to that. So you'll find in our presentation, you'll learn about how it's transparent and very audible right down to every piece, every component of the project. People who are joining the workforce now, whether you're in the contractor side or in the public sector organization, are used to doing many parts of their life using technology at their fingertips. You order food, you book your travel, you order clothes, you do so many things. But in the real property management and construction space, or prop tech and con tech, it tends to lag some of those other parts of the world. So as people join procurement and construction from other parts of the organization or from outside, they say, where's the technology? Why aren't we using data? Why aren't we, why is this not part of our everyday workflow? Also, you see some leadership elements of public sector are often looking for digital transformation to lead them to solve some of their problems. I don't think it's a big surprise, and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but in talking to a number of contractors, there's often a frustration with public procurement processes. So when I hear you can't get contractors to show up or you can't find contractors, there may be because there aren't available contractors, but it may also be contractors that aren't willing to bid on public projects. It can be overly complex. There's so much compliance required on each and every contract. It can be challenging. So that's been an issue as well. Increasing the participation by equity-seeking groups, advancing your environmental and climate action objectives, improving governance. Those are all necessarily layered on top of just buying a new roof. It's like, what else can we get for the community and for the public and for constituents through this procurement? And then the last one is procurement efficiency relative to job size and scope. That had often been my experience, frankly, is where you have the same procurement process applied to the $5 million project as you would to the $50,000 project. And that really chews into your capacity for procurement. So let's get into job order contracting. And Gordian is the creator of the method. We've done it for well over 35 years, but we're not the only company that does that. So we really wanted just to walk through how job order contracting works, just as another tool in your toolbox to deliver your projects. So to start, it's an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity process. So that means there's no guarantee about which projects or how many or the quantity or when it's going to be required. It's an agreement for it to deliver a program of projects. So you still do that single competitively awarded bid. So that makes it compliant with trade regulations and agreements and laws and bylaws, whatever is unique to your community. So we do all that work up front. Then we get into delivering projects based on a preset cost of what we call the construction task catalog. So Gordian does extensive research in every market around North America, and we develop a list of equipment, labor, and materials, 275,000 different line items, 300,000 different line items, depending on the circumstance. And we track that on a daily basis, and we update it on a daily basis. And so that becomes the basis for different combinations to deliver all types of jobs. Now, if you just left it at that, that would resemble very much a unit price contract. So here's the price, take it or leave it, and away you go. But the second component to the pricing is an adjustment factor. So once we give a bit of education and learning to the contractors, they understand how to establish their adjustment factor. An adjustment factor looks after their insurance, looks after their bonding, looks after all their overheads. Profit, of course, that's a necessary component to be a viable business. And they also do an assessment about how valid is that construction task catalog to their market. It may be, they may think it's a little high, so there'll be a lower adjustment factor. It may be a little low and they have to account for it. So that construction task catalog is good for a year and then it's renewed. And again, we give quite a bit of training to contractors when we're going through that. So the beauty of this is that we're able to use that two-stage costing method to be the basis for any number of jobs that are subsequently awarded through the term of the contract. And you already know the prices for that work. So what we believe is that this process really saves you time. You do all that hard work up front and allows you to focus on a job basis where you've already satisfied the contractual terms and the pricing. Savings for the owner and for the builder. And where you really see, and I've spoken to a number of contractors and owners, and where you really see the benefit, it just entirely shifts the whole dynamic between what's typically or can be an adversarial relationship. You see better collaboration, you'll see suggestions. You're not playing gotcha with change orders. It's when, if there's something comes up, you go back to the construction task catalog and the adjustment factor, you address the deficiency, and away you go. Job order contracting is best suited for these types of projects. And some of our research to date shows a couple interesting things. So I'm in British Columbia, and recently at our local government conference, I learned that 85% of local government spend is on renewals. And that was kind of counterintuitive because you see the new community centers or the new swimming pools or the new fire halls, and they're interesting and important, but the bulk of the spend is on the straightforward types of projects that are shown here. I mean, how many times have you seen an announceable on a roof replacement or a new paving project? It's not, right? But yet the bulk of the work factors in there. Other research we've done with our own planning customers shows that 2/3 of the project are valued at $500,000 or less, yet it's only 1/3 of the value. So many procurement and construction project management teams are spending extensive time doing repetitive procurement on the straightforward projects and less on those ones that require more strategic focus and complex relationships and complex contractual terms. So coming back, we apply these 3 areas of expertise to all the work we do, but it particularly shows up with job order contracting. So as I mentioned, we have cost engineers, cost researchers, data science people building that construction task catalog that drives the whole program. We have intuitive, easy to use technology that's supported in the cloud, hosted in Canada. And this is the technology is a big part of the work we do, but it's really about the process. And finally, expertise. Account managers and your operations teams who are on the ground typically have extensive contracting. They're builders, they've been owners, they've been in the industry, and they're there to support the process as a third party between the builders and the owners. I want to dive a little bit into the construction task catalog because it really is the catalyst for this whole program. So it's organized in a way that people will recognize under the Construction Specifications Institute. So when you're working with owners estimators or builders estimators, all the information is organized in a way that's familiar to them. The construction task catalog is all the inputs. So if I was a general contractor and I had to get pricing for all these elements, those are the input costs. And so it's not to represent the whole cost, it's just to represent the input costs. And then you have the adjustment factor. And that you'll see later as we walk through subsequent slides, how that informs, how that matches up to the scope of work to give you an overall contract cost. We could update the construction task catalog more frequently, but it becomes not very practical for contract administration. So we update it annually. And contractors are told about that, how to factor that trend through the term of the catalog when they're doing their pricing. So I think many people are familiar with the traditional procurement methods. So let's choose, let's say we're doing an office renovation. So you do the design and scope, you're bringing up the documents, you're posting them, you're doing a pre-bid meeting, nine or 10 firms show up, they walk the site, they spot the deficiencies and mark them. These are going to be for change orders, what have you in the future, how they actually make their money. Then you do the bidding, then you make an award, you debrief some of the ones that want to debrief. It's complicated. And then the 9 firms that weren't successful have done work for which they don't get any compensation. So that's not really good for anyone, especially on those smaller scale jobs. Think of a $100,000 job. We just do it again and again and again. How it changes with job order contracting is you still do all that hard work, all the compliance, all the competitive, making sure that they're responsible and responsive, making sure that it's openly available to the market. It's a very rigorous process, and we establish our pool of contractors. That becomes the base. Then you have a contract that you can do multiple projects from. So you can do that office renovation, and then you do another one, or you can do other types of work. Now, typically we'll have a general contractor arrangement or general contractor program, and they can deliver these different types of projects. In more precure scenarios, such as more mature scenarios, such as City of Mississauga, they'll have a general contractor division, a mechanical, electrical, roofing, and civil division. So you can get those specialized areas of work as well. So we see this as a win-win, not only for the owners, but also for the contractors, because they do the work up front, and that allows them to focus on delivering quality work for their owner for subsequent projects. I'll walk you through the 5 main slides, just again to try to it's a fairly different way of doing work than we're accustomed to. So I just wanted to talk you through a bit. At the start, we bring in our construction task catalog. We match it up to your existing contract documents in your contract regime. We do the outreach. A lot of education goes into educating contractors how it works, how to put together a successful adjustment factor. We support the bid process. We're there for the training and support, and then we're there for the ongoing work. So once you have the contract in place, every time you have a project, we follow these same 5 steps. So you show up at the joint scope meeting with your contractor who's been put into the pool to do the work, however the community selects their work, if it's always the lowest price, or maybe there's whatever method you use to select from your pool is appropriate for this scenario. So you have your selected bidders, you walk the job site, you're confirming scope, you're many cases coming up with alternate solutions based on the builder's experience or things that you may just spot during that walk around. But that allows you to do a punch list of all the items that are required for that job. And we use our platform to enter the detailed scope of work. That informs the basis of a price proposal. Gordian does a third-party review just for quality assurance. So again, we're doing that office renovation and we see something unexpected there, like an excavator or something like that. And so we're providing that review. Then it goes to the owner. And up to that point, the owner hasn't paid anything for the work. They can accept the proposal or reject it, pursue another option. But typically the job order is issued and away they get with the work, and the direction is given to proceed. So just as we come up on time, just want to review. This is a proven and compliant method. We've been doing this in Canada for just about 15 years. We've been doing it in the United States for well over 30. Last year, in fact, we delivered $3.2 billion worth of projects in the public sector using job order contracting. And we've done extensive work with noted legal and procurement experts in Canada to make sure that we're on side as we expand our offering within Canada. I think there's value based on the savings on the procurement cycle and also just the full transparency on spend. You can bring to audit or to senior leadership an itemized list of every bit of work and what it costs as you go through the construction project. Just that transparency and visibility, again, is part of how things have changed. We have seen in many instances, especially in the United States, where we've been able to advance environmental social governance objectives. Like, how do you increase the participation of, let's say, women in trades, small organizations with really good tradespeople, but maybe don't have that rigor to do repetitive procurements. They can participate in the rigor at the start and then carry on. Same thing with Indigenous-led companies or Indigenous-owned companies, or whatever your goals of your organization are. We found this to be a successful way to advance those other public benefit objectives. We think that there's an opportunity again with those staff shortages to shift the effort to really where the strategic type of projects and allow these routine projects to do a lot of work up front and save your effort on quality assurance, client communication and scheduling and relations, and you address a lot of the compliance and cost part up front. And again, if modernizing your organization through digital transformation is a priority for you, but we make use of all kinds of technology and data. And fundamentally, we just help organizations meet their mandate, whether it's just to spend your capital renewal budget or long-term maintenance project, or just to make sure that you're keeping your promises in your community. So that's a very quick overview on job order contracting. You're welcome to reach out to me or Canoe or other cooperative partners. See me on X or Instagram or LinkedIn, or go to Gordian and explore a little more. So that concludes my presentation. We're really happy to take any questions that might have come your way, Tanner.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. So we'll give it a few minutes to see if any questions come in, or anybody who's on the call, just click on that Q&A box at the bottom of the screen and type in your questions. Must have done a good job. I will mention
we're at OPBA last week, and we had quite a number of really good discussions from a number of communities. Lot of interest. I mean, it's hard to get your head around that this is even possible. How can you deliver multiple projects just through one single procurement? And frankly, there's a lot for me to get my head around. But once you see it in action and you talk to owners and talk to contractors, it's work for many.
Great. Do have a couple of questions that have come in. We'll just mention before we kick this off, we do have video archives of the other webinars that we've done, including one that we did a couple of weeks ago on the Canoe procurement group and how that works from the procurement perspective. So the first question in here is, how do we educate our contractors? Do we do a mass invitation to talk about job order contracting?
Great. Nice to see your question. We met Robin last week. So we do considerable outreach to contractors. We'll work with construction associations. We're doing right now in BC, we're doing pre-qualification meetings where we provide a ton of information. That's something that the Gordian takes on. And the other thing we ask prospective customers is, if you have contractors that you've worked with successfully, we direct them over to the competitive process to see, learn about this, see if it's for you, see if you want to participate in the program. So that's exactly right. We'll do mass invites, we'll do virtual sessions, we'll do in-person sessions, and we take that on for you, and we have a very robust contractor education program.
Great. All right, up next, run me through a high level how you can help us to sell job order contracting to our client departments.
Exactly. Well, great question, Rose. And whether you're in Collingwood or wherever else you are, we did a webinar previously with Mississauga, and Raj Sheth, who's now the assistant commissioner or the commissioner for corporate services. He was running a facilities department and was the biggest skeptic on how this works. But through the persistence with the procurement department and making sure they work through with all the other stakeholders, whether it's legal or finance, just regular conversations, dipping their toe in the water, trying a couple test projects, going through all the questions. Now you'll find no greater advocate than Raj. And same in City of Richmond. They're both been very generous in speaking to people who are interested in job order contracting. Talk to people who maybe aren't from Gordian, but maybe have been in their shoes, and just to kind of go through the detailed questions that relate to that. So if you have, if you'd like to talk about that more, Rose, please reach out. We can put you in touch with your counterparts in other communities, large and small, and just help socialize and gain a degree of familiarity that eventually you're no longer the main advocate. You've got other people talking about the benefits or all the considerations for job order contracting.
All right. Next, we got kind of a two-part question. Has the process been used for water main and sewer replacement projects? And if so, are there any special considerations to keep in mind?
Yes, I mean, this is really well suited. I know in previous lives, sometimes we've used water main and sewer replacement projects for standing offers or unit cost contracts. So it's well suited to be modularized. If you, depending, you have money at a certain time, your extra budget, you can just tailor your project to the side. This is really well suited. Job order contracting is really well suited to water main and sewer replacement projects, because you get all the technical details. You also have it adjusted according to scale. So with larger project, you're going to have typically smaller unit costs, but it'll cover your excavation. It'll cover the safety requirements required. It'll cover connection points. It'll cover the unique skill sets required to put in your civil works. And so, yeah, it absolutely has. We could provide you a couple examples where it's been in some particular communities, but it's actually quite well suited for civil works like water mains and sewer replacements.
All right. For public sector clients, are there specialized disciplines that the initial procurement is divided into?
So yes and no. So Brian, for we'll call it newly emerging programs, often we'll offer it to general contractors, and they'll take on all the work and sub out if the work's specialized. Let's say it's fire alarm panel or something unique for lighting or whatever, they'll sub it out. So you'll see that for smaller communities or smaller programs, there'll be a single general contractor program. As there's a greater degree of comfort and maturity in the program, like I mentioned with Mississauga, they'll typically come up with 5 different categories. You'll just have your general, then you have a mechanical, electrical, civil, and roofing is the other category we'll typically use.
All right, we've got a few more questions coming in. Questions on how to set up a project. So do we pre-qualify a set number of contractors for a category and then assign JOC for each project? They said, you mentioned we do a walkthrough. Is that before we create and issue the RFQ to the contractors or after it's issued?
Right. So first thing you do is you set up the program. So you invite contractors to participate in the program. So we work with the community, we design the program, we inform the contractors, and then when you see that bid process, we invite contractors to qualify, and then they do their bids on their adjustment factor, and that establishes a pool for the program. So I find sometimes using the language of program versus projects is helpful. So now you've got a number of contractors in the program. Then you've done your RFQ, you've been very open, your term of your contract is typically 3 years with extensions, but let's say it's for a year, just for the sake of easiness of explaining it. So all that work is done first. Then once you come to the particular job, you select a contractor out of that pool, and now you start working. You're not taking a design and scope of work and you put that to the market and you get pricing back. You already have the pricing established. The owner will arrive with either a very detailed scope of work and design, or you may have a more rudimentary, here's the outcomes I'm looking for, especially for a simple project. If it's a renovation or a main mechanical rooftop item that's being changed out, you can have the outcomes you're looking for in the specifications, but you've already competitively selected the contractor. You already have the price that are matched to all the different parts of the work, and then you issue a purchase order, and then that you finish the work. So all this is pre-work. The bid process is pre-work, and then once you're into implementation, you can use that 5-step process. So again, this is your typical one. You do all this work for every project, whether it's a $5 million project or a $50,000 project. And what we're saying in job order contracting is you do that once. You do all the transparency, all the assurance that you're dealing with reputable companies. You've established the pricing through the construction task catalog and the adjustment factor, and you focus on the work. You focus on the work. You focus on what do you want to have done? How is this impacting your clients? How do we schedule this? And you're less focused on the parts on the left side of that screen. I hope that answers a little better, Robin, but happy to walk through with more detail.
All right, and up next, is the common contracting mechanism a CCDC 11?
Yeah, we have consulted extensively with, so the answer is yes, is one way. We've consulted extensively with the Canadian Construction Association to make sure that this method would integrate well with the CCDC. So that's the Construction Contract Document Committee. So that's a joint owner contractor committee that comes up with a common contract. So there's no gotchas. So everybody understands with a different form of CCDC contract what's to be expected. So it seemed to be fair and transparent. You don't have to relearn how to do contracting for every job. So CCDC 11 is typically used. Some other communities have used CCDC 5B as a master agreement, but we can use non-CCDC contracts as well. This is just a pricing mechanism that integrates with existing terms and conditions of a contract.
All right, next, in the JOC process, who is responsible for the detailed design and when does that get done?
The design gets done ahead of time by the owner, depending on the complexity of the work. So once so the owner is responsible for the design. So you'll use your in-house capabilities, you'll use retained contractors or consultants. If it's a little less detailed, we'll get the contractor to bring on a consultant who's used to working with them. Because you've already addressed the pricing, and typically when you're doing a detailed design and specification, and I know people will know this, but just for the benefit of those that don't, you're doing it to be biddable and buildable. Well, you've already addressed the biddable aspect through the construction task catalog and the adjustment factor. It's kind of like an index fund. If you're investing, you just accept the aggregated costs in that market as being the basis of your construction task catalog. So then you take the design and then you go through that 5-step process and you just confirm the scope and just enter it into the system, what work is done, and that drives your costing for the project overall. So there's definitely a place for consultants in design, but it can be with the owner, but we have seen it for more straightforward jobs where the builder just needs a little bit of support on some of the technical aspects. They'll sub that out as well.
All right. Do you cap the number of contractors who are part of the program, and can contractors be added throughout?
Yeah, for each solicitation, we're very open. We're very open with, or we encourage owners or cooperatives or whoever's running the procurement to be open and try to invite as many as we can. Typically, it's for the term of the contract. And so circumstances depend. We'll have to, if there's more interest in follow-up, I'd love to hear from you. But we have a competition and people are added to it, and it's typically not renewed till we open up another solicitation. Do you cap the number of contractors? Not typically not. We've seen typically 4 to 6 contractors be part of the pool for every time we do a program. It depends on the competitiveness and the suitability of the respondents. Are they responsive? Are they responsible? And do they have a competitive adjustment factor? Typically, we'll exclude those that have a non-competitive adjustment factor or aren't able to meet the requirements of the solicitation.
All right. What is the cost, or how is it determined?
How does Gordian get paid? So immediate, it's based on a portion of the project value. So that's how we recoup the cost to put together the construction task catalog, how we fund the data collection, how we fund the support and the training and the education of contractors is on the basis of the contract, and it depends on the nature of the contract, and it depends on the size of the work, but it's a portion of the contract value meant to be representative of the procurement effort that you typically make towards these types of projects. So the owner doesn't pay anything until you actually get that first purchase order delivered and executed, and that's when, so there's an immediate return on investment. There's no initial subscription fee or a commitment up front. You build the program, and then once you start delivering projects, that's when Gordian starts getting the amortized return on the investment to set up the program. It does depend on it, like many answers, and I try not to say this too often, but it does depend. Like, we'll get into pricing and the rest unique to your circumstances.
Okay, well, that got us to the end of our list of questions. If there are any others that occurred to any of our attendees after the fact, please reach out to either myself or Jonathan using the contact information that will be provided in the follow-up email. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for taking the time to present. Thank you, everybody who's joined us today, for taking a little bit of time out your day. And we hope to see you at our next Canoe Procurement Group webinar. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Tanner.